Alrighty, welcome to another episode of the Lockdown Podcast. Continuing to pick apart as we do of Raw and SmackDown. We have a lot going on, obviously leading into WrestleMania here in T minus 3 weeks. Still a lot to fill the card up, which I feel like is honestly what WWE is known for, and that is tossing things together and hoping for the best. Haven't had a terrible amount of storylines that would lead us into, better quality matches in WrestleMania other than the, four championships. Obviously, those are obviously, the biggest bill just because those are going to be, basically headline slash co-headline matches. So everything else is just kind of filling in the card. Basically have roughly 7 matches officially on WrestleMania card. And so, again, we have 3 weeks. So hopefully they give us something with, both the men's and the women's tag team championships. Obviously, the Raw and SmackDown for men. Obviously, just the women's tag for the women's side, and we still have the U.S. title on the women's side still up for grabs. We have Penta in the IC championship, obviously still, for something to do. So let's get to it. So we kicked off Raw with Paul Heyman basically almost being more advocate than the wise man or the oracle. It's kind of weird, but I think this was like a pivot that had to happen, I guess. Because I really think honestly, I felt like the Obafemi and Brock thing would happen, and I almost thought it would have made more sense for them to like be without Paul Heyman any involvement in this and just let it be what it was. I think Paul Heyman is in it because of all the injuries in the vision, and so they really don't have anything for him. So he's doing what he can, to basically interject himself in regards to Brock Lesnar. And so, Obafemi obviously does pull another one over on Brock Lesnar, and so I like this. It's definitely I don't know how you put it, but it's fun, it's interesting because, again, if you haven't watched NXT and you don't know a whole lot about Obafemi and, the journey, the background, stuff like that, he absolutely ran roughshod through NXT, and obviously him getting the call to the main roster was very much deserved. And so I think, we were waiting to have, that breakout moment for him because obviously he had a bunch of wishy-washy matches, and then he had, still a wishy-washy match with Rusev, which I feel like they could have done a little bit more with that. But just ran rough shot through that, and then obviously a couple weeks ago, staking his claim to facing Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. So I hope this lives up to the hype. I definitely think this match will not be long. I think it's just going to be move for move, power for power. Not as boring as the Brock Lesnar Goldberg match by any stretch, but so I'm definitely looking forward to this match. I would honestly say I would love for this to open up WrestleMania.
It probably will.
So, I hope not, because it's a lot of pressure to put on someone who's definitely an on-call performer as opposed to someone who just got called up to the main roster. You're putting so many eyes, when you kick off, a card, and you're the first match, there's a lot of pressure because you set the tone for the entire night. And if it's not even remote close to what we're expecting or what we think could happen, I mean, it's gonna set the opinion for the entire show for the entire weekend. So,
I mean, it also could be too big, too big of a match to open.
Well, I don't think it's that big of a match.
Well, I mean,
you just got these big ass dudes.
Yeah,
I mean, that's about it.
You know, but I honestly think too. I mean, there is a little bit of the passing of the torch, though.
I mean, that's if Brock Lesnar goes away after this match. I doubt it. They'll call him.
I doubt his ass is going anywhere.
Yeah, he's gonna at least work two more matches this year. Yeah, two more matches.
We don't have any vision, so I mean,
you pretty much passed the torch down to freaking Cody Rhodes at that 1 year SummerSlam in Detroit.
Yeah. Like we all thought, we would get out of having Brock Lesnar be on every show or be on, every WrestleMania, but I don't see him like retiring anytime soon. I would say maybe 2 years from now he's done, but I think he has a lot more stars to make.
Yeah, and I definitely think he's just going to be the pusher of new talent. I mean, I've heard a little bit of his stuff on a podcast he did, and he's just kind of like, I'm good, when I'm not in WWE, I'm just dad, and he works on his farm, like raising his kids and everything else. So like, I don't think we're gonna see him as much. We're only seeing him this much now is because we're lead up to WrestleMania. But I mean, he has nothing left really to prove anything in his career. So, I think he's just going to have fun at the tail end and, leave it at that. Yeah. So again, we don't really have any idea of the Usos, who they're facing, or even if they get a match at WrestleMania, which would be very surprising if they didn't. But
I don't think they will.
Because WWE's had a history of basically having these championships done, these matchups literally the day before WrestleMania or the week or the Monday before WrestleMania, and they almost bury talent in doing such, and then they put matches on the WrestleMania card that are absolute shit. So I mean, I really hope they do. Like we don't get these lackluster stuff leading up to WrestleMania, and then it's like, so I was good enough to be on the day before or the week before, and then all of a sudden you just got nothing for me. And the Vision stuff is not as big without Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, and that's an unfortunate pivot that they have to do. Because obviously, I'm pretty sure they were pretty set on, Braun Breaker, winning something and it not being Randy Orton for all intents purposes, but here we are. But so we had Logan Paul and Austin Theory versus the Usos, and obviously Jay obviously uses some I forget the term, but unconventional, I guess we'll say, and uses brass knucks. Obviously, the ref catches it. And the only person in WWE that can get away with brass knuckles and get away with it is one William Regal. So that's the only person really I've seen in WWE really consistently doing is William Regal. But so we're getting AJ Lee versus Becky Lynch at WrestleMania, which is to be honest going to be a snooze fest. I know in years past they've in years past, well maybe go 3-4 years back, where they had a lot of like ladder matches for championships, and there was a lot of multi-person matches, but I really feel like we're not going to get jack of that this year. I hope they will. Again, we have 3 weeks, but like, you know, I don't care for AJ Lee versus Becky Lynch. And I think a lot of people probably think the same thing. But we'll get deeper into that later. But I hope Javon Evans is on the card in some capacity. I hope they, give us a multi-person IC ladder match is what I hope for. But I mean, honestly, so he faces off against Grayson Waller, which really there was nothing to this, so I don't really want to touch on it too much. But
yeah.
So Paul Heyman, came out, and so we get the emergence of Seth Rollins, and Paul Heyman, being the strategist that he is, got some kind of court order or whatever, and so we end up seeing Seth Rollins arrested, which, I mean, how many hundreds of wrestlers have we seen arrested?
Too many.
Yeah.
How many times has Stone Cold been arrested?
Right.
A lot more than anybody.
Yeah, I would dare bet. I would love to look up that stat and see how many WWE wrestlers have, been arrested and who's on the top of the list. I'm sure it's Stone Cold.
Probably.
But I don't know what they're doing with Seth Rollins. It's really confusing because I want to see him on the card, and they're saying he's not medically clear, but I'm 100% sure he is. But I don't know where he fits. Because we have no Braun Breaker, we have no Bronson Reed, and so I don't think we're going to see Seth Rollins at WrestleMania, which is weird because we've been seeing him at WrestleMania for most of his career,
right?
But there's still time. I don't know who he would feud with, to be honest. I mean, for all intents and purposes, maybe we get like the week before. Maybe Braun Breaker's back. I don't know the extent of what happened to him, but I mean that'd be a twist, right? But yeah, I don't know what they're doing with Seth Rollins. Had Bayley and Live Valkyria, who are one of the teams kind of rallying for the tag team. Beat the Kabuki Warriors. Nothing really to touch on there. Nothing really to touch on. Whatever. Stephanie Vaquera attack Liv Morgan. Blah blah blah. And so we get the Penta defending his title against Dominic Mysterio because he cried like a little b-boy, and obviously Penta does get the win. But after the match, we get the emergence of Finn Balor, and this is definitely going to be a match at WrestleMania. I have zero doubts that we're not going to see Finn Balor versus Dominic Mysterio at WrestleMania. I don't think they're going to Raw or SmackDown this. I feel like this feud is worthy of the WrestleMania card. Some might disagree, but I mean, we've been talking for like a year about how we wanted Judgment Day to dismantle. We wanted Finn to be on his own, and better late than never, we finally got it. And I don't, Finn's not letting up. Finn is going to deal with whatever. He's going to do the same thing Damian Priest did and deal with every freaking member of the Judgment Day and move on. And so I think we're going to see this for probably, let's say, at least 2 months. Whether it's, Dominic and JD having a match and Finn finds a way to screw him over, or we get Finn versus JD. Like I said, I would love to see Finn, versus Dominic at WrestleMania. And so now that we're on the outs of Judgment Day, with Finn being out, we can kind of pick apart what could happen. And to be honest, I really think that I don't think Raquel Rodriguez is far off from doing the same.
Yeah, they might. Yeah, I can see with Raquel like taking off, getting kicked out or anything like that. Yeah.
Well, and I've said this before, is that Liv Morgan has screwed Raquel
more than once.
More than once.
Yep.
And so I think that
I'm ready for her to leave the group.
And maybe she goes with Finn.
I wouldn't blame her. I feel like what's her name that's out right now. I think she might come back and team up with Finn.
I mean, yeah, I think that.
Yeah.
I mean, well, because Roxanne was all about Finn.
Oh yeah, she supported him.
And so I think that I give Judgment Day 3 to 6 months before it's disbanded. And maybe I'm being facetious, maybe I'm trying to call my shot, but maybe I am. But I really think that, Raquel screws over Liv Morgan at WrestleMania. Because
if that happens, if she does do that, then I could see her ass leaving the group, and I'm thinking that's when everybody's going to go their separate ways besides Liv and Dominic.
Yeah, which no one cares about.
They'll stay together.
Yeah, and so we're finally getting juicy between Roman and CM Punk.
Ooh, I've been enjoying every minute of it.
And so I love that. First it was exchanging of words and insults, and now it's getting physical. And it was kind of it was very bloodline-ish that Jay and Jimmy ended up coming out, and I think Jey Uso is slowly transitioning to be the tribal chief. And I say that, and I think a lot of people have kind of read between the lines, because Roman was like, after they did their spat, whatever, Roman was going to leave and be done with it, and Jay basically directed Roman. And now, do I think it's going to happen? Not really. But, because the OTC is the OTC, and that's how it's going to be. But, Jay was definitely doing, some very tribal chief-esque kind of commanding. And so, like, after all is said and done, Roman puts, CM Punk through a table, but CM Punk's laughing. Because, and I give this up. I give, honestly, even though CM Punk went through the table, I feel like he got the last laugh. Literally and figuratively, because now he knows that he's getting under Roman's skin. And now you're starting to see, a little bit of annoyance, a little bit of overthinking, a little bit of, aggravation from Roman Reigns. And that's where CM Punk wants him to be. And honestly, like, I'm good with, these builds, for Cody and Randy, and for CM Punk and Roman Reigns. I think these are the only championships, because the women's are not doing really jack shit with, but like the men's championships right now, they're really honing into the feuds. They're leaning into the brutality, the disdain, the hatred that both people have. And I really these matches are not going to disappoint. Now, so last week or the week prior, Matt Cardona decided to stick his head where it did not belong, and that is in one Randy Orton's business. And he basically, got a nice chair shot for his time. And so, when Randy comes out at the beginning of the show, he's, doing what Randy Orton says, talking about, the voices in his head, and that he's not going to be held accountable. And I love this. This is Randy Orton 2008. And I absolutely love this Randy Orton. This is not the chipper Randy Orton. This is not the high-fiving, but like he's still like, but people still love him. It's, he's the only guy that can get away with doing heelish things and people still love him. Like there's probably been less than 3, I would say, in the long term of WWE that's been able to tote the line like Randy Orton has for the better part of his career. But so Matt Cardona obviously attacks him, hits him on the mic, which obviously got us a match later that we'll get to. And so I don't like Nikki and Brie Bella. I wish they would go away.
They're getting annoying.
I don't have as much disdain for them as I do Logan Paul, but like I don't like them. They bring nothing to WWE. I don't want to see your retired ass. Like, I don't want to see you. We have so much going on in the women's division and the tag team division. I feel like they're leeching off that.
I don't think that way. I mean, I don't think it's going to be like an amazing match, very, energetic or special. And I think we've talked about that previously. But I think if there is work, I think, and you are still passionate about it and can still do the work, I think having that opportunity is great,
Nikki's back because she owes child support.
Yeah. That is true.
Yeah.
Digs and zingers, aside. I think, both of them, I think they're just playing with house money. This is just fun for them.
I would have to agree.
And if, we were in their position, would we want to turn down free money just to go and perform for a year?
I think that's the same concept as like, like being in like the NFL and like, you know what, $250,000 on the practice squad. Yeah, I'll go ahead and do that.
Exactly. And they are, they still have some drawing power. I don't see a problem with it. Would I want them to have like a really good, solid run, before they like retire for real? Like, all right, we're done with pro wrestling. We're gonna move on. We're gonna do our other things, and this has been great. Yeah, I would like to see that from them, but I mean, they have other priorities, and if WWE wants to pay them, it's like, hey, a couple of times a week, do our stuff. It might be annoying for some, but shit, you're still a draw, so let's do it. Put them on TV. Put them in a program. Send them to NXT. I mean, they can like really grow the NXT women's roster as like, whatever, it's, so
it's just we're in the era of basically, they're pivoting a lot, and they've basically suppressed the secondary title women's division, and basically we're dealing with tag team championships that are building stories, and then the top tier. And so like I honestly, I mean, with how the secondary, with the women's IC and the women's United States Championship, obviously with those going on, obviously I think, they're striking where the where the iron's hot, and right now that's tag teams with the women, and I'm good with that, honestly, like in its entirety. I think it gives more eyes. I think it creates tag teams that you wouldn't think of combining. I mean, really, honestly, Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss is probably the most surprising tag team I've seen in 10 years. Like I've seen them, I've seen them throw people together, and they do a little thing for a while, but I think they're leaning into the whole "we're not friends" thing, and I think it works. And they are two powerful women in the women's professional wrestling world in general, and so to pair them up, it's an awkward pairing, but it really works. and they're both veterans of the game, and so like they know how to work everything. And you're not just putting two schmucks together, like you're putting two you know previous women's champions, and I'm all for it. And so obviously Nikki Bella and Brie Bella obviously end up getting the win over Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss, but obviously a lot happened after the match, and it pretty much leads us to the to basically the end game is basically WrestleMania, fatal 4-way. I mean, it's the only direction it's going, because you essentially have Bayley and Lyra from Raw, you got Charlotte and Alexa from SmackDown, and then you have the Bella Twins that really aren't designated to a brand. So it's kind of the perfect storm where you want, like, especially in the women's tag division, you want someone representing from every brand. And so I think it works. And I definitely think that we're getting a fatal 4-way. I mean, a fatal 4 tag match. Like it's the only conclusion you can draw. And yeah, so I mean, I hope they announce it. I hope they, definitely work it into the storylines the next couple weeks. And definitely look forward to seeing all that. Now, so in the week prior, we had some kind of cohesion between B-Fab Meechin and Jade Cargill, in which I think is a weird pairing, but I look at this pairing and I think of the fact that when you had Bronson Reed join the Vision, right? When Seth did, Seth and Bronson Reed went back and forth, and it worked out, right? So it's almost like Stockholm syndrome, but like, if you can't beat them, join them.
Yeah.
And so you had Rhea basically obviously call them out for that, and then we obviously get a match between B-Fab and Rhea Ripley. Obviously ends in a disqualification. No surprise, which freaking most used recipe in sports entertainment history, no matter what company it is. It's the trope of all tropes. But now the next match we had, which, man, it was a little interesting, but we had Jelly Roll versus Kit Wilson, and I thought they could have done more with Jelly Roll in this match. Let him kind of tap into kind of how he was at SummerSlam and how he performed there. I thought they could have had a little bit more of a moveset. But it was, I mean, it was what it was, right? And so Jelly Roll does get the win, so he actually gets his first ever win in WWE. And I like the celebrity aspect of who they bring in, because you don't want to bring someone in who doesn't actually respect and enjoy the business, right? You don't, like, the celebrities that are around the ring are whatever, right? And they're there, and they get their 10 seconds of fandom, and then we move on. But I like that they've used Jelly Roll, pretty much since before SummerSlam, obviously, when him and Randy got together and faced off against, I think it was what, Logan Paul, and I don't think it was Bronson Reed. It might have been.
No, it was Logan. It was Randy Orton, Jelly Roll versus Logan Paul and Drew McIntyre.
Yeah. Okay, that's what it was.
That was at SummerSlam.
Yeah. So yeah, I think he respects the business. He understands. Obviously, he's not going to go out there and do any 5-star frog splashes or anything.
I don't
But
see his big ass getting up on a ring post and doing
doing
one of those.
Jelly Roll does a shooting star press.
Don't. I mean, we've seen big men do a lot of amazing things, and Jelly Roll, from what we've heard from the internet, has been really investing in, getting in ring shape, losing weight, increasing his fitness, and by God, he might be able to pull off something surprising.
Yeah. So I think honestly, it's just fun. Right? Yeah. Like sometimes it's nice in WWE when you just have things that really they don't have much depth. They're just something fun, right?
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes we need a little bit of reprieve from the nonsense that, some of the storylines are, and just to have something fun. And I think, Jelly Roll does that, role very well.
Mm-hmm.
So Carmelo Hayes has defended his title basically in open challenges, obviously, 8 times since basically the beginning of the year. And then we see, his 9th open challenge facing off against Sami Zayn.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously Sami Zayn had, the backstage segment earlier in the show about, trying to get on the WrestleMania card. And so we see Sami Zayn face off against Carmelo Hayes. And honestly, I feel like I can't help but feel a little bit like we're gonna get some kind of heel Sami Zayn. But basically doing what you have to win a title, right? And that's been preached by so many performers talking to other performers. A lot of the veterans talking to the young ones like, hey, sometimes you just got to do what you got to do to win championships. And this was one of those occasions. And, and Sami basically took advantage of the fact that Trick Williams got involved. And so, and he's seen it too. And so that's what leads me to believe there's inklings of, Sami, maybe being kind of heelish. Maybe he's the new crybaby Drew McIntyre. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But good on Sami Zayn for winning the title though.
Yep.
Not mad about it. I love the workhorse ability, if that's even a word. Of the US title specifically, right now. And so it's really fun to see these matches every week. Now, man. So Drew McIntyre and obviously Jacob Fatu had that insane back and forth thing throughout the night, the week prior on SmackDown, and so these guys are battered. and so
I love the trash talking between them both.
Yeah, I love it, dude. And it's like I thought like Drew would be kind of on the way out to go do this whole movie, but I really almost feel like Drew's not going to leave. I think he might have spots where he goes and does what he has to and comes back. Because it doesn't seem like he's leaving, because I know the movie started a while ago. In production.
He's probably filmed a few scenes for the scenes that he has to be in at certain parts. And
I think so
he's
too.
going to WWE, do his thing with WWE, where it's his time to come back, do his couple scenes for whatever the name of the movie is.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's the main
Highlander.
star of it.
Yep.
They said he had a big role in it, but
his role is he's playing the lead character's brother in the Highlander reboot. So
then he might be in a lot of the scenes then if he's part of the main top star of the movie. Maybe they might have pulled a deal with him to still do WWE because it is getting close to WrestleMania, and they probably fully understood that. and they might go back into fully after WrestleMania is done. He might go back and leave and do that and get that over
Yeah.
with.
Yeah.
I think
So, I
they
mean,
understand it's WrestleMania season.
yeah. And I think, like, I mean, movie production, you really kind of have as much time as you need, essentially. I mean,
Yeah, they
so
take a while to film.
They do, but you know they're also on tight schedules for the filming. You know, just like a TV show, they've got to get their stuff in. So, you know, when Cody was doing his Street Fighter bit, he may have taken a week off or something like that. Comes back, you know, he's back on TV. He's only on TV for a couple of hours. They've made they know what they're getting into. Drew knows what he's getting to. Yeah, I'm not, you know, whatever it takes. I mean, you know,
I think this is Drew's second movie he's in.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's nice to have the extra revenue, but still being a full-time performer. So honestly, it's very respectable. Honestly, like he's not just leaving and being done for however long he wants to be, and then eventually coming back. He's still staying invested in storylines.
Just like I could see Roman leaving for a while and doing movies
I mean,
too, because
I mean Roman's a different monster. He's
he's a
different beast.
He's quite absent. But so basically, so we get all this exchange back and forth, and I love that this basically, you know, ends with Nick Aldis coming out saying, like, you guys are just freaking crazy, basically. And so I love that we're gonna get an unsanctioned match at WrestleMania. I think the possibilities are endless at this point then, right? And so, like, I mean, it's almost more extreme than just a street fight or a no disqualification or whatever. Like, you know, it's gonna be more gruesome.
And maybe, just maybe, this is what writes Drew McIntyre off, you know, so he can go do his thing and then come back. It just popped into my head. It's like, oh, this unsanctioned match.
Yeah. So it makes sense. It adds up, and so, you know, but I think it's definitely going to be exciting. Now, something that's not exciting. Good transition. So we've had Julia be champion basically since, I believe, SummerSlam, and it's been a pretty lackluster at best championship reign. But again, like we've said a million times over, I mean, it's really creative's problem. You know, and if they're not doing something, you know, that's the wrestlers are just doing what they're told, right? You know, so, you know, this comes down to their booking, their creative, and so we obviously do get a championship match, obviously, with Julia facing off against Tiffany Stratton, and honestly, a good match. But I mean, in typical fashion, obviously Kiana James gets involved. Ex facto, Julia retains. I really hope they work something in with a better storyline than what she's been given. There's a lot of potential there. You know, because it's like when they called up Julia before Stephanie Vaquer, and there was an expectation, it kind of fell through. Stephanie came in, and obviously it was a whole different monster. So I don't know if it's lack of fan investment in Julia, and they're just trying to figure out to push whatever through at this juncture, much like they've done with like Jade Cargill, where it's like we don't have a whole lot to go on, so we're just gonna kind of ring this chamois for what it's worth. So I honestly think that's kind of the angle we're working with, because again, creative, it's your fault. Like, your fault 100%, period. Because if she's not intriguing, she's not getting fan investment, then move on to the next person.
I think it's an investment. They don't want to. They want to see some return on their investment, and they just don't want to cut them loose, because if in a future episode, I'm sure we're gonna talk about who gets released after WrestleMania. I don't think they're going to release Julia. I don't think they're going to release Kiana James. I don't think they're going to release a lot of people. There will be some releases after WrestleMania.
Yeah,
I think they want to. I think they're going to rebuild Julia in something that the crowd's reaction to, because I think her presentation has been lackluster at best, and I don't think that is her fault.
No, it's not. It's
yeah.
And I think I don't mean, I'll rephrase what I said a second ago, but like I'll say it's mostly creative's fault, right? Because sometimes superstars just don't get over. And that's just what it is. I mean, really, Lyra Valkyria really for the first while really wasn't over. I mean, she still gets some crowd reaction with the whole intro music and everything. And I think entrance music matters. And I that's why I think 99% of the WWE universe are pissed off when they change someone's music. Specifically Stephanie Vaquer. And so, I'm a firm believer in that, the entrance music really sets the tone for the wrestler, because honestly, like, I don't actually like, I think the CM Punk, the whole cult of personality thing, like his character transition to that music being what made sense. But obviously his old music he had before again fit that persona. And so, some people they transition music, some they don't. But so we get the match, obviously we talked about earlier with Randy Orton and Matt Cardona. Obviously ended exactly how, we thought it would. And then obviously we get, Cody coming out and taking like 20 years to get to the ring. Like I
did like the guy in the background came out of the bathroom doing this.
Did you see that like TikTok video that was like, here comes Cody 20 minutes later. And Cody's coming out 2 days later.
Like, yes, I've seen that one.
He took freaking forever. So yeah, so let's get to the meat and potatoes here. And so are you in or are you out? And my first one, so I'll cover Raw and SmackDown, and then I just have some final stuff. But so belief that Obafemi could beat Brock Lesnar.
I say yes, because I could see Brock Lesnar passing down the torch. Like the night he picked him up and slammed him on Monday Night Raw, Brock pretty much told him to put his foot on his chest.
And it's not the first time that we've seen Brock Lesnar coach somebody.
Nope.
Years previously, he did that with Drew McIntyre. So yeah, I'm not 100% sold on Brock Lesnar losing to Obafemi just because of Brock Lesnar's positioning with losing at WrestleMania. And not even that, but losing against, black athletes. There's talk and chatters like this, if he does do it, it would be like one of the first times that it's ever happened, like for Brock Lesnar. And that's also has to do with how the former regime was running things. Do I see Obafemi? It's kind of difficult, because where does he go from there? Do you immediately put him in the world title picture? I don't think historically that's what WWE's done to build their next generation superstars.
But do you
Shit,
think?
I
But do you
wish.
think that the fact that they've done the same thing for so long, that maybe this is the change, or this is the transition that we've been waiting for and we've been very vocal about, along with, a million other podcasts, TikTokers, YouTubers, whatever, that have all kind of been on the we're all universally saying the same thing, that sometimes the status quo needs to be changed. Sometimes
Yeah.
the expectations need to change, because now you have heavy hitters backing you, right? Like you have the Netflix deal pushing things on WWE. You have TKO chirping things down to WWE. You have ESPN being very vocal about their frustration with the product. And so like I really think that, or even the Saudi. So it's like I feel like they have a lot of things that are pressuring them to do something different and to produce better product, because they've been vocal about their displeasing of the product. So
Yeah, I think for me on this match, it's a wait and see.
Well, and you're
I
not
would be,
wrong. You're not wrong about, because the previous regime, because you've had Brock Lesnar have matchups. You had the Kofi Kingston stuff. You had the what's the freaking what's his name?
yeah, Kofi. You had Big E. You had Bobby Lashley.
Bobby
You had
Lashley. Yeah.
R-Truth.
It's a weird thing, but it's a fact.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't, and like there can't, like, and I don't know, and I think like it has to be like Brock doing, or Brock insinuating that he's not going to do this, because once is okay, whatever, two is okay, maybe, three is not a coincidence, and four is like, this is kind of seeming very obvious. But
yeah, again, I would be surprised if they do that they do make Obafemi the winner, and that they push in that direction, because who does he challenge for championships? He goes after a mid-card title after beating Brock Lesnar? No, you beat Brock Lesnar.
Hell no.
And you go after the world championship. And WWE takes years to build these characters, build these athletes in such a way that there's an emotional investment, so people keep coming back to see their guy, right?
That's to say,
So,
I would love to see him if Roman beats CM Punk for the world title.
Yeah,
I can see that happening.
I would love
to see Roman and him face each other. That would be a good ass match.
Here's what I think is going to happen. I think Obafemi wins by disqualification, and it's because of outside interference by some character. Brock Lesnar then F5s the shit out of everybody.
Royce
Homes.
Royce Keys.
You know what? And if it's what I don't want to see is Royce Keys versus Obafemi. What I would like to see is Obafemi and or Royce Keys getting second and third cracks at Brock Lesnar and beating him, establishing new dominant forces in WWE.
I would love to see Royce Keys and
Obafemi
as tag team.
Oh my gosh.
Man. That's just me. I would love to see two big ass dudes like that.
They would hold that
gold championships.
Two big meaty men.
They would hold those titles literally for as long as human possible.
Yep.
No bread, no water, just meat.
Yep.
So
it'll be a good team.
So the next thing I have, obviously, I think we're all pretty universal on the same page, but like the Roman CM Punk build, And I love this because one, hey, Roman's showing up. And so I love this build, and I just love the build. I
Oh, I
think
love it.
that they have to build these, the men's championship matches. They have to knock this out of the park. And so I think they're doing a phenomenal job.
I think they're doing a hell of a lot better than Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes building their match to WrestleMania. I think CM Punk and Roman promos are great, fantastic. Oh, I love how you get a lot of the bloodline outside of WWE interacting into it, making making the story really great, getting more eyes on the product, more eyes on their match. I think me personally, I think this is going to be one hell of a match, and I think it's going to go down as a 5-star match.
So sidebar question, but do you think that the Roman CM Punk matchup is more about history and throwing jabs at history versus the Cody and Randy Orton being more psychological?
I think you're spot on with Roman and
CM
Punk. Just this is like, kind of like a long brewing grudge match. They should have had this match a decade ago, and that would be it. I think the psychological aspect with Cody and Randy, it does also come from history. I mean, mentor, mentee, big brother, little brother, type of thing. You got something I want and I need to have this. I need to solidify my history. You know what? And Cody's like, I'm not going back down to you. And, and I'm going to, I don't see Cody holding on to that championship. I can see CM Punk leaving there with his championship, but I don't think it's necessary for CM Punk to retain. I think it's more important to have Roman pick up the win and for a championship, because it then leads to the bigger story that he is the face that runs the place. He is the company. The company is on his back and he can do whatever he wants. In my opinion, CM Punk is a nostalgia act. And the sooner that we can get past this nostalgia act and we get into his retirement tour, the sooner that we can actually invest in newer stars that take on his role.
Yeah, I mean, and he's definitely ran its course. And honestly, like, it's crazy that, as over as CM Punk is, it's like, I mean, like you said, he's a nostalgic act. And I think that, we need to start transitioning, to the future. And I know a lot of podcasters, a lot of YouTubers, a lot of everybody, is looking at the age of the roster, right? And we in being in your late 40s in wrestling is deep because of obviously the toll of the job and everything that comes with it, the travel, the everything. And so, there's a lot of youth coming up. And I'm not saying that all of a sudden these youth are just going to take over, but I definitely think, we need to start planning for the tail end of CM Punk into something new. Because, I mean, I think, and the thing is, like, CM Punk, I think, is like, him and Roman are only like 7 years apart. So it's not like it's like you're talking to, like, you're old or whatever else when Roman drops those lines. But, like, yeah, I mean, at what point in time do they truly start to transition? And I think a lot of it has started with Trick Williams, with Obafemi, with Javon Evans, them coming up, Carmelo Hayes. I mean, and so we've had a lot of fresh talent, come up, and a lot of youthful talent come up and show that they can do it, right? I mean, because Javon Evans is 21. Like, let that sink in. What were you doing at 21? Nothing. Like, you know what I'm saying? And like to be on the main roster at 21, I mean, that's a Randy Orton type stat. But Javon Evans didn't come from lineage. And so, it's very respectable and it's very commendable, to see the new the new talent come up that don't have bloodlines, that don't have, they're not a third or second generation anything. And so, because again, you look at Roman's got lineage freaking for 100 years. Same thing with Cody. I mean, so it's like, it's, I just want to see some kind of transition. But I think they're starting it though.
But it happens in such a way that it is, if you're not really a student of watching WWE or pro wrestling, you miss that transition because it happens in such a way. It's kind of like, watching a plant grow. You've got the seed, you plant it, and over time it grows, right? But you don't remember like, when it happened, like when it, first started, growing its first leaf, or like, started growing its actual flower. You just all of a sudden it's like, oh man, this person really, developed, and now they're taking on this role and stuff like that. It's just really, it's like, it's very interesting, how they do these things, and how they build these characters, because it turns out to be something along the lines of like, it just happens. It's just like,
it's a flip of a switch sometimes, really. I mean, because everybody starts somewhere, right?
Right.
And honestly, even, Roman really started underneath the learning tree of CM Punk. And so like, I think that, it's good that WWE has kept around a lot of veterans, or even veterans on the active roster, really like pouring into the new generation. And yeah, like you said, dude, all of a sudden this is gonna be like 1 second, and then all of a sudden we're just on a different path. But yeah, so the next thing, that I kind of want to get your opinion on is that, like, the Becky Lynch AJ Lee like whole story thing, right? And like, and I get it, it has some depth obviously when AJ Lee returned or whatever, and then you got the Seth and Becky versus CM Punk and AJ Lee, and like that was cool, that was nostalgic, but like I buy more into AJ Lee returning than I do the Bella twins. But like they're not far off from really being just as kind of But like AJ Lee being an independent, like just a single person, not like being known for twin magic and all that other stuff, like just knowing for her credentials, over the course of, her kind of short career, obviously cut off due to obviously, a smothering of things. But, hers is more of a comeback story than them bringing back the Bella twins. And even though like I think that there's not a like there's a good storyline but for Becky, and AJ Lee facing off, but like it's just not like a high caliber match, right? Like it's not a Trish versus Lita. It's not a Michelle McCool versus who, like, and so like I don't feel like the women's roster is as big as it once was, just because it's very saturated now versus 10, 15, 20 years ago. It took them more effort to even get any ring time. But yeah, so I mean, Becky Lynch, AJ Lee, WrestleMania. I mean, I'm not like mad about it. I mean, at least it's a championship match. But I mean, like, what are your guys' thoughts? As far as like this, not even just the matchup, but just like the positioning of those two, to obviously get a match at WrestleMania.
And I and I say that as like, again, going back to my positioning with the Bella Twins being on, being back in WWE, they're having these tag matches, they're on SmackDown and stuff like that. This was bound to happen. AJ Lee needs to have someone she can work with that has chemistry. Becky's doing really good heel work. I mean, very good heel work.
And it's not just her saying it.
Yep, no, it's not. It's I think she's doing very good heel work. I would say it rivals her husband in my opinion. Like, yeah, and I think with AJ Lee, it's some people have an emotional detach. They're emotionally detached to AJ Lee, right? So they're not going to find her as appealing. I think AJ Lee is, what? She's good at it. She's fine. Am I like emotionally invested in this match? No. Do I think it deserves to be on the card? Yep. Because it could be something worse. It really could. It could be something worse. Imagine it being Kiana James and Julia, having a match. And we've already talked about the struggles of Julia getting over. I mean, beyond the attraction to the female performer that, people would have, there's no substance. And I think their match it's just for a championship and bragging rights. There's nothing captivating you, making you want to choose sides. Someone in the next 2 weeks has to step this match up with Becky Lee and with Becky versus AJ Lee, and make it emotional. It's not emotional. They're just, AJ Lee's trying to do her best to be the babyface, and they're positioning her as the babyface, rightfully so. I think we need to see some organized chaos between these two, and we need to see some scripted violence between these two. Right. Meaning, I need to see Becky Lee do something dastardly and be like, "Oh, maybe I've crossed the line." Nah, I didn't. I need to see Becky.
I mean, you need to see something out of normal character.
Right. Remember when Baron Corbin deep sixth Becky Lee, and we were all like, F that dude. That dude gotta go. You know what I'm saying? We need to see that level from Becky Lee in order to push this into must see. Because right now, this is like, this match and its buildup is not happening. We need to have that. And I think we'll get something like that in the next 2 weeks. And it needs to come tomorrow. It needs to come on Monday night, next episode of Monday Night Raw. So March 30th, it needs to drop. Otherwise, this was another wasted opportunity for WWE to really build AJ Lee as a babyface. Maybe we get AJ Lee snapping and going back into her psychosis,
her insane
issue.
Self.
Yep, her insane self, where it's all smiles, and then Becky Lee, or AJ Lee hits Becky Lynch with something and like flips the script. It's like, you don't want to see me crazy, dude. I've put in the work. I'm fine right now. But if you want that girl, I'm gonna give you that girl. Maybe we need to see something like that. where Becky, you started it. Now, you know,
Yeah, and
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think they definitely need to turn up the heat. Not obviously not to the extent of what Cody and Randy are doing, or CM Punk and Roman Reigns are doing. Like, you don't have to
Mhm.
go that much, but like, yeah,
You
I
know what?
definitely think we need
Why?
to.
Why not? Why not? You know what? Stop limiting the 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 female roster, the women's roster, um, because you don't want them to seem as brutal and as violent as men.
Well, I mean,
I
I'm
mean,
not saying that it can't happen.
you know what? It
I
should.
think that
You know what?
maybe for all intents purposes that, like, let's say they do whatever tomorrow, and they do whatever, and maybe for all intents purposes, maybe they, like, all of a sudden one walks out and the other one chases them with a chair or something. I mean, and I'm not against the gratuitous, of them, getting brutal.
Yeah, I'm.
But again, if that's what they can do to build the match more than just, nostalgia versus current, like, then run it. Surprise me. Do
You know what?
something
And
out of the
that's.
ordinary
Yep.
to really just break out from that.
You know what?
Um,
That's what we need to see. We need to see. Stop limiting the women because of some unwritten edict that you don't want that. You know what? Let me see a chick bleed. Let me see, let me see some brutality. Let me see an unsanctioned match between these two. If you can give it for the men, give it to the women. Equal
yeah,
rights and lefts. Everybody can get it.
yeah,
Agree. 100% agree.
Do what it takes to get this card over, because right now the entire WWE WrestleMania 41 in Las Vegas in 2026 sucks. It really
yeah,
does. We've got a couple of things that we're excited to see. We're excited to see potentially Randy Orton winning his 15th. We're excited to see somebody beating Brock Lesnar clean.
yeah,
We're
yeah,
excited, but other than that, there's not much to be excited about with this
yeah,
card. And
yeah. And
let it
so,
start with AJ and Becky, you
yeah.
know.
So on the flip side, so with what's going on SmackDown, so obviously, like, with obviously Sami Zayn beating Carmelo Hayes, and then all of a sudden, like, that quick pivot to Sammy versus Trick Williams. I I would rather see a multi-man match for any of the secondary titles than I would just Sammy versus Trick Williams. Now, and that's in no way, shape, or form a dog on Trick Williams or Sami Zayn. It's just, over the years, they've always had these real intense ladder matches, specifically, for the championships. Whether it was when they transitioned, the Usos having both titles, to splitting up the titles and doing that angle, or the plethora of Intercontinental or U.S. title ladder matches they've had at WrestleMania. They need that wow factor, and Sammy versus Trick really is not even Raw or SmackDown main event level anything. And 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 even if they build it up as such, or maybe we see Sammy cut his hair, maybe we see Sammy freaking change personalities. I don't know, but I'm just we're just the whole card right now is loaded with singles matches. And even like last year, really, there was basically a couple tag matches, and then like three multi-person matches, and that was it. Other than that, it was basically a bunch of singles matches, and maybe that's what they're trying to do, is maybe transition to kind of more singles and not, whatever. But like, if you want the wow factor, if you want the OMG moment, if you want the guy, like the guy that's so synonymous when Brock Lesnar broke the streak, that black guy with the glasses and the shirt and everything, and he's all like, like if you want those moments and you want us to make more memes, like you gotta put the wow factor at some point in time at WrestleMania. Now another thing I wanted to get to is, so the women's US title, obviously, like I've said a million times, is very lackluster. Now, do you think, like, between Julia and Chelsea Green, who did it better?
Chelsea Green.
Yeah. I think, again, with Julia, I think it is a character issue.
She sucks.
I don't think she sucks. I think her presentation of her character is the issue. I think if they were going to do something with Julia, I would lean into Julia. I would lean into something like Tajiri, what they did with Tajiri, and made him a Japanese buzzsaw, right? Made him very aggressive and very fast in the ring. I think Julia's lineage, her heritage, she's Japanese and Italian. I think they can really play that up, and let her just have really good, outstanding matches where she's getting the crowd involved, where she is, screaming at her opponent in Japanese and or Italian, and just having really quick, fast-paced matches.
She just needs to lose the fucking title.
Well,
I mean,
she needs to lose the title, and WWE just release her. She sucks.
She does not suck.
I think she does.
But the thing is, but we're saying that as the fans when really a lot of it's creative, right? And so, like, I'm totally on board that they need to lean into something to give her something different than, she's like a character that you create on 2K, and then you have the generic moveset, you have the generic everything. She's plumb basic, and to a certain extent, that's not all of her fault. And I'm with Frederick that, maybe they need to, maybe change her character, maybe, change her music, maybe make something dark. I mean, maybe she needs to spend some time with Shinsuke Nakamura and really recreate herself once she loses the title, and maybe she disappears for a couple months and she comes back something different. Something, something not much different than when Natalya left for a little while and now it's come back as Natty, and she's more aggressive. She doesn't give a shit about the fans. She's a whole different character, and I think for as long as Natalya's been in the business, she's been the same thing. The same, I'm friends with everybody, I'll give anybody free knowledge. And now as Natty, she's just a straight bitch who doesn't care what anybody thinks, and she's going to do what she needs to do to work through whoever she needs to get through. And maybe that's really what they need for Julia, because what she's doing now isn't working.
Yeah, and I really think that's the case. It's just not working. And if Tim is being adamant about someone not being with the company, to me that means whatever they're doing is definitely not working, because he loves CM Punk and I don't think he should be with the company, but that's me. So
I'm sorry, CM Punk can be he's a lot more fucking better wrestler than that piece of shit who can't even wrestle for shit. Her matches are 2 stars. She sucks. I'd rather go take a shit while be watching her damn match.
Tim's blood sugar might be low.
Usually that rant is me, but
yes,
I haven't ranted in a long time. But
rightfully
Tim,
so.
Don't get me wrong. She could be a good wrestler.
Man.
She could be a good wrestler. She needs to take her ass back to training.
I don't think
her wrestling skills suck.
I think it is a presentation issue. I really think it's a presentation issue.
But she definitely fell off the short bus or something. I don't know.
Well, so we'll move on. But poor Frederick pops a blood vessel and Tim starts doing crack online. But this is fucking starts getting Braun Breaker vein popping. So the last thing that I wanted to touch on is, given the match card with the Jacob Fatu, Drew McIntyre, and it being unsanctioned and everything else, do you think that it actually might overshadow a championship match as far as crowd involvement, crowd investment, and just overall match? Do you think that the brutality that they're gonna have, someone's getting cut, someone's bleeding, and do you think this match actually might overrank another championship match?
No. I think this match is probably what needs to be. I think this match probably needs to set the tone for night 2, and it needs to be brutal. It really does. Either night 1 or night 2. This needs to be the opening match.
I think they're doing it night 1 because Nick Aldis said he literally said the date. I think he said on the 18th. So I think this might be night 1. But yeah. So I mean, there's an absolute shit show going on in WWE, and we're just along for the ride. And so again, we have 3 weeks to WrestleMania. I hope to all goodness that they put together a show that's worthy of being WrestleMania. I think under different regimes, I feel like WrestleManias were way better. But I do like the 2-night WrestleMania concept, though. I don't know about the 2-night SummerSlam. I feel like, you just because you have 5 good matches doesn't mean I want to watch 3 filler matches.
Yeah.
So I think it takes away from the prestige. I feel like WrestleMania is the only one worthy of that, just because it's such a high caliber, top tier event. But we will wait and see, because that is all we can do. We'll put a pin in this as we do, and we'll be back next week, obviously, to break things down, and then I think the next week we'll have our episode leading into WrestleMania, so hopefully we have actually amount of matches to really pick apart. And then obviously the following we'll be live streaming for night 2. So, and I have to get comfy in my office for probably 6 hours of my life, but I've done it.
I was gonna say, I was gonna say we might do the live. It was the Sunday night.
Yeah.
And on Saturday night, I might do a live on Twitch with me watching it, and you guys can hear it. I might do that.
Yeah.
Sweet.
And for those of you that, you've been bogged down by this whole concept of the ESPN price tag to watch stuff, is if you bundle it with Hulu, Disney Plus, and all that,
that's what I have.
You're actually getting your money's worth. So don't be a stupid idiot. We'll go under a Chris Jericho line. You stupid idiot. And you know what?
You made a list.
There's I mean, there's ways to freaking save money to watch the product, guys. So get creative.
Let's just say, I watch it. I don't watch it on ESPN Plus. I watch it straight from the Hulu, where it does when I get on the app, it's the first thing that pops up, and it's connected to the ESPN.
Yeah, so
I watch it that way.
Yeah, so I mean, it's entertainment nonetheless, man. Sometimes you gotta pay for stuff, and that's just what it is. But yeah, so we'll see you guys next week. Hopefully, we have more to break down. So this is the Lockdown Podcast. Peace.